All right, now let's talk about how to make your chords more smooth. Just as a side note, I'm not talking about smooth as in legato, meaning like versus. I'm just talking about the closest and easiest way to get from chord to chord instead of doing, which is a lot of movement. So we're going to talk about how to move less. Okay, so the first chord is a C chord. Then we need to go to a C chord. To go to the root chord, we would do it like this. But remember how we talked about the inversions? If we just look for the chord notes of C, meaning C, E, G, they're actually much closer than this. We can keep the C that's in the F chord, E, and G. So here's the F chord. We're going to keep the C. We're going to move these down just a little bit, one step per finger. So that's the F to the C. The next chord we need is a D minor chord. Remember that D minor is D, F, A. So we're here on the C chord. If we move everything up one step, so from here to here, that's our D minor chord. Next we need G minor. This is pretty easy. We get to keep the D, move to G, and B flat. Next we need a B flat chord. B flat has B flat, D, and F. We already have two common tones between G minor and B flat major. So we're going to keep the same notes, the common tones, and add the F. Next we need C. We can take this note to C. This finger can now play G and E. Next we have F. We can keep the common tone and move here. Go back to C. We need a D minor. Move everything up just a little bit. Go back to F. Now we need the B flat. We're going to keep the F and add the B flat and D. So to do that, to make it smooth, what we're doing is we're keeping the same notes if they happen in both chords, like this C, or we're moving to the closest next notes of the chord. For example, C and D minor do not have any common tones. But this, moving to this, is only one step away. See, the C moves to F, G moves to A, and C moves to D. So E moves to F, G moves to A, C moves to D. To do it from here to move down here, that's much more movement. There are times where you might need to do that, but it's not the closest or easiest way to do it. Similarly, moving this way up to the other D minor inversion with A, D, and F might work in some cases, but that's a very large leap compared to. So that's the goal of this. We're looking for close movement and keeping the common tone. Okay, let's skip ahead to the E minor chord since that's one of the odd chords. Let's back up to the chord right before that with the B flat chord. So we're going to start on B flat. We're going to have F, B flat, and D. Next we need an E minor chord, so we need E, G, and B natural. Or this fingering works well too. Next, G minor. We're going to keep the G, B flat, and D. We're going to do C. There's a couple different ways you could do this. You could keep this G and come up here. That's probably the best for our example at the moment. Later, we're going to talk about a suggestion for why this one works better. But for the moment, we're going to go with this. Okay, so we have this to this. Oops, sorry. Next, we need B flat, A minor, C, and we need a D chord. We could move up this way. We could also move this way. So there's more than one correct way to realize these chords, and there's more than one correct way to move between them. It also depends on what you're wanting to do with the melody or the supporting harmonies. And it also depends on which chord you're coming from and where you're going to. So let's talk about some of those other ideas. All right. To tie in with some other theory concepts you may have heard before, we're going to talk about some voice leading. And I know that's a little confusing because this is not a voice. In fact, in the chord charts, the chord charts are designed so that the piano accompanies the vocalist, whether that's the person who's also playing piano or someone separate. But they don't necessarily play the melody. In these example videos, the melody is not included. These are only the chords, realizing the chords to provide support for the singer. But we call it smooth voice leading because it's based on some of the chorale writing and Roman numeral analysis, and also based on the soprano, alto, tenor, bass rules. So we're going to use these videos as a way to tie all of those ideas together in a way that will also work for chord charts. Okay, so one of the rules that you hear the most often regarding chords is that in correct voice leading is that you want to avoid parallel fifths. What that means is that if you have a chord like this that has a fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you have this major chord, you don't then want to do this. This is a fifth, this is also a fifth. So they're moving in the same direction with the parallel fifths. There's a couple different reasons for that. One is that fifths can be hard to distinguish from each other. So if you have a long row of these, it can be difficult to hear the different notes. So for this example, we're going to avoid those. In pop music, it's very common to play parallel fifths, but just as a suggestion for learning how to incorporate music theory into realizing these chord charts, we're going to avoid them. Okay, so that's one reason why at the beginning we go here. It's okay to do parallel sixths. See how this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? That's okay. But we have a B flat chord and a C chord coming up. We would not want to do B flat to C because those are parallel fifths. So instead, here's the G minor chord. I'm going to do B flat to C. Okay, another rule, I say it that way, I was going to do quotation marks, but rule meaning sometimes it changes depending on what you need, but it's a good principle, is that for the most part we try to have the leading tone pull up to do. So we want the TiDo sound. So when we have this, we now have the E here. We want this T to go to do. There are times where you may not do it, but for the most part, that's a very good rule. One time that we are not going to do it in this chord chart is here, when we have the E chord, E minor chord. Usually when the leading tone is on top, you must go to the tonic. But this chord chart instead goes to G minor, so it does not have the F in it. Okay, remember a minute ago, after we did this G minor chord, I did this. But I said that we could also do this, and we would talk about it in a minute. Well, that moment is here now. Okay, so we're going to do this. For the C chord, we're going to put it down here so that you can have this TiDo. After we do that, we have the A minor chord, and then we have the C/D. We do have this T that should probably go to do, but our next chord is a D major chord, so that would be up to here, And you could do that. You could do and there's nothing wrong with that progression. It's just a lot of moving in parallel. There's no parallel fifths that I can tell. And so that would be a good option. But instead I decide to take it down here. Since it's not going to F, because the chord chart is asking us to do D with the F sharp. So this sounds better, I think. That's kind of a personal opinion. Okay, now we're going to put both hands together. One thing when you add the bass clef, or the bass hand in, left hand, is that in general, contrary motion is very nice. So contrary motion is where they're going in opposite. One reason for that is since we're trying to avoid the parallels, you want to be careful of doing something like this. Because that would still be parallel, sorry, this way. So if you're going in opposite directions, that kind of avoids some of the problems. Sorry, I'll show you in a second. Okay, so we're going to do the parallel motion as much as possible. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Part of the chord chart goes F and then E, C/E, D minor, F/C. So this one has to go down. So as much as possible, the right hand should try to go up. That's the idea we're going to go with. Okay, so first we have our F chord. Then we have C/D, so we're going to play D and C with the smooth voices. And then D minor, G minor. Now, that's parallel. See how this did this? They both came up. Let's see what it sounds like if we take it down instead to this G. It might be off the camera's view, but it's still a G. Okay, so we're going to start on the C/D. Now the D minor, G. Now we're going to do a C, B flat, C. And that works well because this hand is coming down, while the left hand is coming up. So they're moving in contrary motion. So here's the G minor. Now B flat/C. Another C. So the left hand does another C, while the right hand moves from B flat/C to C. Okay, now for the fun part where the left hand gets to move a lot. F, C/E, and D minor, F/C, B flat. Okay, let's back up for a second and do all that again. So here's the F, C/E. That's a little bit problematic because we have the F's and the C's going in parallel. We also don't want to have parallel octaves, just like we don't want to have parallel fifths. So let's try moving the right hand up, because since we were doing parallel motion, that's why we got in trouble. So let's try moving the right hand up. Alright, that was almost better. Now we still had the D and the C. Let's see what we can do about that. So here we have the F, the C, and now I need to go to an F chord, B flat, and B flat with /C, and now I need a C chord. Now we need an F chord. Alright, the next part repeats itself a lot. At the end I will play all of it through, but for now let's go on to the next part. Let's go to where it has the B flat into the E minor chord. Okay, so here's B flat. Okay. Remember you have to have A on the bottom for the left hand. G minor chord. Now let's move that C down here to B flat. Do A minor chord. We're going to do the C chord. minor chord. Okay, now this is a really picky thing, but right here, this is a C chord in the right hand. It's a second inversion because here's the normal one, the root, first inversion, and then second inversion. You want to try not to have too many of these. It's better, so we want to avoid going like this. So we have another one of a D that's in the second inversion. It's just not, it tends to make it feel like it's close to the end, but it's not really at the end yet. So we're going to do this, and we're going to go back down to the D. Okay, let's finish this out. Now we have the G minor, and C, F, C and E, D minor, we're going to do contrary motion, F and C, B flat, C, and we're going to do F. Notice here we have the TiDo, and we keep the C. And the left hand is going contrary motion to the right hand. It's going very low. So it starts on this C, and then it goes down to the